Well, it's all about the heat these days, right? Hot, hot, hot. And if you think it was hot here while I was away on my travels that took me to the other side of the world in Dubai, it's about 30% hotter temperature there. So stay cool, stay hydrated, watch those pets, and I guess thank goodness for AC. Not a lot of folks in Dubai this time of year because it is so hot. From news reports, I guess everybody is going to Italy this year, right? I've seen a number of articles where Europe and Italy in particular, very crowded with tourists. Had a friend of mine who was in Italy about a month ago who was telling me that he was not able to get into the town of Amalfi, which is on kind of the was that western coast of Italy. Beautiful city. I've had the opportunity to go there myself, but he was not able to because of how many tourists had sort of booked that day. So certainly it is hot outside. It is just as hot in Washington. We see them pushing the hot item of the Roth. And not just in the Secure Act, which is what Rob and Kristen talked about on the show last week, but sort of throughout the course of this year and next, sort of the push is on, if you will. And I guess why is that? And I think to recap, if you're a regular listener to the program, you know we don't really trust our government that much. Maybe you do, good for you, but we don't. And so certainly we've talked about this at length in a variety of different angles and topics that come out of Washington. Of course, if you ever want to listen to any of those previous programs, then you can go to our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com, or you can visit your favorite podcast platform. Simply look for Nelson Financial Planning or Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris, and you'll find our channel. If you have any trouble, go back to the website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com. Upper right-hand corner, there's a bunch of icons. Click on the one that looks most familiar, and you'll get immediately connected to our channel on whatever your favorite podcast platform of choice is, along with, of course, our YouTube channel. For that, it's Nelson Financial Planning is the way to get to that one. So my name, of course, Joel Garris, certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary at Nelson Financial Planning. So what's the problem with what Washington is doing these days, particularly when it relates to the Roth? So to take a step back, let's do a little history, if you will. The Roth was introduced as an option, as an alternative to sort of doing a traditional contribution, right? Main difference on the Roth was, well, you're not going to get any tax savings now, but when you take it out in retirement, it's going to be tax-free. The traditional approach was, okay, we're going to try and encourage you to save money for retirement by providing you a tax deduction now. And yes, when you use it, when you take the money out, you're going to have to pay taxes. That's a fundamental difference between when we talk about a Roth contribution versus a traditional contribution, whether that's to an IRA or a 401k or a 403b. That is the distinction. So interesting, though, if you look at the legislative history for the Roth itself, when it was first created, the single biggest reason why it was created was not to give you like another option or to help you. If you look at the legislative history, it all really came down to generating revenue. Because remember, the Roth you fund with after-tax money. The traditional, you get a tax deduction on it. So if you push the option that makes you pay the taxes now, what does that mean from Washington's perspective? Well, from Washington's perspective, it means that they're getting revenue. They're getting money. And in case you haven't realized, they're kind of in desperate need for money now. And so that's really the messaging or the focus that is coming out of Washington. Look, don't get me wrong. We understand the allure of the Roth being tax-free. It seems like that is like a siren song that we hear out there in the financial industry and also in Washington as well. Because at the end of the day, we all like free stuff. So if you say something, tell somebody it's going to be tax-free, well, that's pretty exciting. Free stuff in general is pretty exciting, right? Go to Publix and love the BOGOs, right? Buy one, get one free. How amazing is that? Doesn't matter that, I mean, when I I do it, I don't know about you, but whenever I do it, it's like, okay, I've got the second one, but at the end of the day, I never really used it, but it was free. So, so that's good. And I think that underscores why the word free often comes with some strings, right? And in this case, I think Washington has really seized on sort of the siren song of free to help convince you that it is free so that Washington can get more in tax revenue. And this trend continues in three recent changes that we have seen as it relates to the tax code. First, Roth contributions, or the ability to make Roth contributions, are now allowed in both SEPs and simples. What's a SEP? What's a simple? Well, those two are types of qualified plans that you would typically see at smaller employers. A SEP stands for self-employed person, so that's a very small business of an individual. And then a simple is specifically restricted for employers that have like less than 100 employees. So these are two types of plans that are really geared towards smaller employers. And previously, you could only do traditional types of contributions, meaning you put money in, you get a tax deduction, take it out in retirement, and you pay taxes on it. So now what the legislation have done is they have introduced the ability to also do a Roth inside of these smaller employer type plans. So nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, good to have options. And if you can make the regular contribution, why can't you also then have the choice to make the Roth? No problem at all, as long as having more options as it relates to retirement, right? Always a good thing. Second of all is that Roth contributions are now allowed for employer matching contributions. So what these are is I'm working for my employer, and my employer has a 401k, and they match 3% of the first 6% that I contribute. So that matching piece that the employer did previously was only allowed to be done on a pre-tax basis. The Roth option was not available. Well, guess what? Now it is. And again, okay with that, right? Because having an extra option is always a good thing. But here's the third thing, and this thing is a little bit troubling, if you will, because it doesn't give you choice. It requires you to do the Roth. You must send Washington your tax dollars if you plan to do this. And what is this? Well, that is when you're doing the catch-up contribution to your 401k, then you're not going to have a choice if you're a high-income earner, but to do the Roth. So let me say that again. If you're doing the catch-up contribution is if you're over age 50, you get to put this year an extra $7,500 in to your 401k. So it's a pretty significant amount of money that we're talking about here. And you typically would, sort of have the option. But what this rule change does is it says that if you are making good income, defined by Congress as over $145,000 in the previous year, then you no longer will have the choice. You must do those catch-up contributions on a Roth basis, not as a deductible, starting next year. So let me say that again. That starts next year. We're going to take a break, and we're going to continue on this conversation of the elimination of options if you're doing your catch-up contributions starting next year, because there's some real things that you need to be thinking about and considering on this as they kind of limit the options that you have available to you for retirement. So we're going to take a break and continue here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris of Nelson Financial Planning.